Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is Andrea Potterton. I'm on the RASCW committee for our area, and we're privileged to have Steve Wilkinson, a local appraiser, with us today. I thought it might be a good time for us to touch base with him and see what changes are coming down the pipe with appraisals. And just to give you a heads up, I know it's fun to know everybody that's on the call. We also have two additional agents from our office here, Carrick Potterton and Jessica Vasecas. So for convenience, we're all just watching the same screen. Steve, like I said, is an appraiser in the area. He actually covers a really wide range of counties around the area. Very active in Iowa, Sauk, Richland, a little bit of Crawford, Grant, western side of Dane County and Lafayette County. So he stays really busy. He does conventional appraisals, land appraisals for private estates, FHA, and USDA appraisals. So with that, Steve, I'll turn it over to you, and thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrea. Good morning, everyone. I did want to say, like, my laptop's over here, so that's where my camera is, but I'll be looking at my screens, which are over here, so I'm not avoiding anyone by any means. But thank you, Andrea, for asking me to do this. I've always gone to my continuing education classes for appraisers and always recommended that we should have something where in the training process, appraisers and realtors are together in the same room, just because there is so much that we're codependent upon each other for. And so this is fantastic. I think that I'll learn some stuff from you guys, and hopefully I can share some stuff with you. To give you a little bit of background about me, this is my third occupation in my life. I was a computer programmer. Then I was a bar grill owner, and now I'm an appraiser. So I've kind of jumped all over the place, but live in Dodgeville. We have my wife, Tammy, is a chiropractor here in town. We have 3 kids. I didn't have my children until I was 40. So I have 1 in college, 2 in high school still. But they keep me busy, and everything is fantastic here. I've got some cheat notes here. So my education is, I have a associate degree in computer programming. I have a bachelor degree in business management. I used to be a member of the Lions Club on the city council in Fenimore, is my hometown. Was president of the Turkey Federation chapter there. I used to hold a broker's license and a real estate sales license back in the 90s, which I had let expire. But so I have a little bit of real estate background. And this has kind of brought me to where I am today. So the outline today, I just have a couple things, is we're going to talk a little bit about licensing requirements for appraisers, and then we'll talk about where our professions intersect each other, and kind of how your information and mine, or any appraiser, just kind of intersects. Then we'll talk a little bit about changes in the appraisals. There's a lot of changes coming up, the way appraisals are going to be performed in the future. So we will touch on that. Then I do have some housing stats. I was watching Squawk Box on the show in the morning, and they had some statistics that were quite shocking to me that I'll share with you. And then we'll close and have a question and answer session. This is very informal. Please jump in if you have something. Hit the space bar to unmute and just stop me, and we will talk about it right away, because otherwise we could just lose it and you might forget. So feel free to jump in. Okay, so to get started, there are 3 levels of, I'm going to try to bear with me, folks. This is my first time ever running a Zoom meeting, so I'm going to try to do some screen sharing here. Let's see if hopefully I can pull this off. There we go. So can everybody see that? Okay, that's my information. If you need me to email me, call me, any questions after this or whatever, this is where you can reach me. There are 3 levels of being an appraiser. One is just a licensed appraiser. One is a certified residential appraiser, and the third is a general appraiser. the different requirements, this has changed. Back when I did it, there was more restrictions, but now I'm just cheating looking at this here. Licensed appraiser requires 1,000 hours of appraising under a licensed appraiser. On top of that, you have to take your school education, which is another 150 hours of education that you have to take. So that's a licensed appraiser. A certified residential appraiser like myself now requires 1,500 hours, and you can do it no faster than 12 months. And then a general appraiser, which is the top, that requires 3,000 hours and no faster than 18 months, of which 1,500 hours must be in non-residential appraiser work. So back when I was doing this, the requirement was you had to have a college degree, and I had to do 2,500 hours. Now it's reduced down to 1,500. What happened is all the appraisers were getting old. Young people weren't coming in. It's hard to get in because basically we're training a competitor, if you will. I do currently have a trainee. He was a banker and is very familiar with appraisals, and he wanted to become an appraiser. So I do have currently a trainee that I'm trying to help because I'm getting older and I'm going to retire sometime soon, and I'm willing to pass it on. But it's hard to really get new people in because someone has to take the time and the energy to actually train someone. So that's how that goes. All right, let's see if I can pop a new screen up here. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about what is finished area. One of the things that we notice a lot as appraisers, we rely on your MLS listings like their Bible, because without that information, we really don't know a lot about some of these comps that we're using. So we use your information all the time. So finished area, you know, I'll see listings that'll have different square footage. I'll go measure it. We're nowhere near each other. So I just wanted to touch base on what, as an appraiser, finished area, you know, is an enclosed area in the house that's suitable for year round based upon where it's at, and everything here. You can read this too, floors, ceilings, and similar to the rest of the house. So in this example, for let's say a 3-season porch that does not have a heat source would not be considered finished space, even though it could be knotty pine, ceiling fan, bar, it could be loaded up, but if it's not heated, it's not considered finished. And there's other examples I'm sure that we can all come up with. Unfinished area, of course, is just whatever doesn't apply to the finished area. Now here's one of the biggest ones that we find is grade. Like you folks, well, us as appraisers, we have to define livable space, the GLA, or gross living area of the house. Define it as above grade or below grade. So at this time, I'm going to pull up another one. Let's see here, I'm going to stop that. So we see it a lot in these listings where, you know, some people are not sure. I don't mean to pick on any realtors at all. This one, you can't see the name on the bottom. So, but this one, for example, I used to own this house actually. This was a 2-unit rental I used to own. They apparently converted it back to a single family. But right here, can you all see the screen? Because I can't tell if you can see it. You can see it, okay? Okay, the listing. Okay, so this right here is, you know, finished part. To me, this line, finished part, all below grade square footage. I'm not sure what, and I'm going to look for someone partaking to answer this question, but to me, I've always thought that this line right here was finished basement only. Now I know this has a basement. It's a very small basement. It's probably 392 square feet, but I've always thought that this was supposed to be finished below grade. Now, can someone chime in, Andrea or anyone else, and let me know kind of when you go to put that in, what is your standard? Paul? Oop, I can't hear you, Paul. Why can't I hear you? Am I the only one that can't hear Paul?
No, I can't hear me either.
I can't hear him either.
Okay. Oh, there's a little bit.
Are you there, Paul?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
There, yep.
Okay, sorry, had the wrong thing switched. So below grade is, or it should be unfinished for that if it's not finished. I mean, I don't count anything that's a laundry room without a ceiling, or the mechanical room, or any of those things, or a rock basement under a nice old house from 1920, where it's just a nice rock basement down there with a furnace and a water heater in a little room. You can't count that.
Right, so in this example, I know that's exactly what this basement is, because I know this house. So my question is, if it's not finished, do you still put in the square footage?
No,
No,
not
okay.
supposed to.
Okay, so that's the one, I didn't think so, but I wasn't sure, so that's why I wanted to ask, because we always assume that if you put something in there, it's finished. It's either it's what part is finished, so, this could be, a lot of houses will be, have mechanical rooms like you mentioned and other things, Paul, that aren't finished, so a lot of times it's less than the total square footage of the basement, quite often. But I just wanted to know, yeah, sometimes, so this will be put in there, but then if you look down here, there's no lower level rooms identified, and again, I could just use this one because I know this house very well. So that's one thing, like we really depend on the information that gets put in here. And I think the above and the below grade finished has kind of always been the area where it's never been exactly always accurate. And I don't know if that's a training issue or what, but it'd be something that really would be fantastic if this could be more accurate all the time, of course, but everybody makes mistakes. And the other thing too, a lot of this, we use all this. We use the the bedroom count comes from here. The bathroom count comes from here. Fireplaces has value. So we always look here for fireplaces. So always put fireplaces. And if you have heating and cooling, please always, if it's central air, please always put central air. A lot of times I'll see it'll just say forced air, and then I go to the property and there is a central air unit, but it's not listed here. So just so you know, we do use all the information that you folks do input for our jobs, and it really is helpful for us. Like the patio, the fenced yard, the storage building, those are all things that have value that we need to know. So that's fantastic that they have those on here. So I just wanted to touch on that finished above and below grade. Any questions before I move on? Okay. Measuring standards. They just
I have a quick question.
Yeah, who has a question?
So if you have a below grade where they finished everything but the ceiling, and if they didn't do the ceiling, that doesn't count, right?
That is correct. Yes, the answer is yes. A lot of people do that because they don't want their assessment to go higher in basements, so they'll leave the ceiling unfinished.
What if they paint the ceiling or they paint the wood to make it look like?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I see a lot of people paint it black. I've seen that, or white. And it really, per our standards as an appraiser, we're not allowed to include that as finished area. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't go and in there and say, like, here, this would be a good time maybe to pull this up for you. We have a grid on our software that all of us use that identifies kind of all these things that you're talking about. This is the standard, we call it a 1004 uniform appraisal report. This is the grid where we put the comps in. So, here is where above grade room count and the gross living area. This is the below grade area here. Now, it doesn't mean that we couldn't go down here, change this from outbuildings to amenities, another amenity, and put like partial finished basement, or somehow give credit for that, because really there's value in that. Of course, there's got carpet floors, drywalled walls, insulated, studded, the whole 9 yards. So there is value, but we would have to put it on a separate line. And there's a lot of things that we use these amenity lines for: outbuildings, cabins on rural properties. If they have an extra little cabin or anything that's kind of an oddball, goes in these lines, and that's where that value is added. I hope I answered your question, Julie.
Yep.
Okay, great. So they passed the new measuring standards recently. We have to measure within 1/10 of an inch for our diagrams to get GLA, gross living area. Now we do measure, I think you guys measure usually inside room dimensions. We measure outside the building from including the vinyl, the insulation, everything. So it's outside edge to outside edge. So our measurements usually are a little larger than a lot of listings, which is common. That's normal because you guys, I think, usually measure more inside, or you'd get your information from the assessor or wherever it may come from. But we measure outside to outside, and they changed it, so we have to do 1/10 of an inch for our. It used to be like 1/4 of an inch was fine or something like that, but now it has to be 1/10 of an inch. So they really want us to get accurate. Another thing too they changed is there's a 7-foot ceiling minimum requirement. Now, if you went per standards on an old house that doesn't have 7-foot ceilings, hypothetically you could come up with 0 square footage. So I just had this continuing education class last week that talked about this, and everybody's like, whoa, wait a minute, that makes no sense. And it kind of doesn't, because he said that's the standard, but you could explain in there that the entire house was built older, and so forth, that it's below 7 foot, and then you can still use it. But that is kind of the minimums. Like and a good example is you get upstairs in an older home that has the sloping ceiling, and then all of a sudden you're down to 3 feet and then it drops down straight. We're supposed to go only to the 4-foot mark, and then it's only supposed to be from the 7 foot. So it's like if it slopes and you got 4 feet that's 7 feet high, and then you got another 6 feet that meets the 5-foot minimum, you're only supposed to count to 7 foot and then add, like on an amenity line, the extra square footage. So it's getting kind of silly in my opinion, but that is the standard they're passing now, is a 7-foot thing. So I'm not sure what they're going to do in the future. There's a lot of appraisers that are kind of if you will, bucking that, saying, hey man, it's just getting a little excessive. But it always used to be 4 foot, 3 or 4 foot, and those sloping ones you only measure to that point across, and that gives you your square footage. So that's what we used to do. But I'm just throwing it out there that there's a lot of changes coming up, and that's one of them that they did change. Any questions about that? That's just a little tidbit about that ANSI. It's called the ANSI standard, the 1/10 of an inch thing. Changes coming to appraisals. There's a lot of changes coming, and that's going to be all the way from technology, mostly technology, is really what's driving all that. So there are hybrid appraisals now. Hybrid appraisals where somebody else goes to the property and inspects it. Currently, I go to the property, inspect it, I measure it, I take pictures of the inside, outside, excuse me, I do everything myself. But now there are these hybrids where they're sending people out to collect the data with pictures and so forth, square footage and all of that. And then we sit in our office, they send it to us, and we can do it sitting at home using the information given to us by this third party. A lot of appraisers don't like it. I'm not a big fan of it either myself, to be honest with you, because I'm relying on someone else to give me, Paul, I'll get right to you in a second. I'm relying on someone else to supply me the data. Therefore, what is my liability issue is a question. So it's just some other stuff. But yeah, Paul, go ahead, please.
Are those people going to be required to be certified in any way? Or is it just...
Great question. That's a great question. Currently, they're not. There is a license. There is an application process you have to go through. There's training you have to go through, but there isn't a specific license for that. I know a lot of realtors are doing it. There's a lot of other people that are just not appraisers that are doing it. So there is training, but there really is not, to my knowledge, a specific license requirement.
They a couple of years ago, when you were selling a manufactured home, you'd have to have an engineering report done on the foundation, and you'd have to get a real engineer out to look at it. Now you can hire this company, and they send out home inspectors or whoever to go under and measure and take photos, and they send it in online, and the engineer is sitting in South Carolina looking at all of it.
Right.
So same kind of setup.
Yeah, it seems like it's very, very similar. So that's how they're all doing that. Peg, I see you're unmiked. Did you want to comment?
No, sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. So yeah, that's kind of, Paul, the exact same thing that's going on here. Is it's just so they're just trying to, I don't know if they're trying to speed it up. I think they're trying to speed up the process of getting appraisals done is one of their big concerns here. There is in the rural areas, I've heard that there are people that take up to a month. That blows my mind actually, because I mean, I used to, and now I can get back to within a week. I can get them done within a week. Back when it was really busy a couple of years ago, it might be 7 days, you know, and that's counting weekends. So I'm not real sure why some of these take so long, but they are. So that's why they're trying to speed it up a little bit. The other thing they're doing is desktops now. You still have to go and do an exterior kind of thing, and then you come back and you do it on your desktop without doing an inspection. That's like an exterior only. We've had those for years. The 2055 form. So we've done them for a long time, which brings me to this new form is coming out next year for us. It's going to be a interactive form. So the 1004, which is the one I have pulled up here and I'm sharing. This is the one that like is for sales, refis, residential homes. There's a separate form that the 2055, which is for the exterior only, where you drive by the house, take a couple photos, and you do all the work just based on assessor information, realtor MLS information, but we don't go in the house, we don't take pictures inside. Then there's another one, which is the desktop, where you don't have to even take the pictures of the house. You don't have to drive there at all. You can just sit here and pull pictures off the MLS or any form. You know, you can use Zillow or not Zillow, but or Zillow, or you can use the Google Earth thing to take pictures. You can do anything you want pretty much. This new form is going to be interactive. So as you answer questions going into it, it's going to determine kind of what it's going to show you next. So if you say, they ask you, did you inspect the interior of the home? And you say no, well, it's not going to pull up this 1004 form because they know that it's an exterior kind of thing only. But it's going to, they haven't got it out yet. I guess they've kind of got a testing group using it currently. I've not seen it yet. I just heard about it last week, that it's this new form in 2024 that's going to be an interactive form. So our job will change basically. Hopefully they're thinking it's going to be better, and it probably will be, but that's coming up. Then technology is really there are test groups doing things now where the homeowner walks through the house with an app on their phone and just scans the house, each room by room. It takes pictures, it measures it, and creates a 3D model when it's done. Crazy stuff. So it's like they just walk around their house, and then we get the information from that. That's something that's in the works. There's a few companies doing that. I'm not real up to speed on what those companies are and exactly what all they're doing, but I know that is that's really going to be something that's going to be used in the future too. For appraisers, there's some other software out there too, like adjustments. I know we're going to get talked about adjustments, I'm sure, somewhere in here, because there's got to be questions about how we adjust things. There's a couple companies out there that are creating software that interact with the MLS, and I keep putting in a request, hopefully for the South Central or our South Central Wisconsin MLS to try to work with this company, because I know they work with the MLS in Milwaukee, but they don't in Madison yet. It's called Spark is the software. It goes through and analyzes all of the database in the MLS and creates adjustments for us. It will tell us what a bedroom's worth, what a bathroom's worth, what a storage shed. I mean, I don't know what level it goes to, but it goes pretty deep. And that's something I've always been wanting, because as you know, in Madison is different than here. I can go to Madison, I can extract data, because there's so much data that I can come up with exactly what a bedroom's worth, exactly what a bathroom's worth. It's a little tougher here when we have, I think currently there's only 6 houses listed in Dodgeville for sale, if I'm not mistaken. We get 30 sales to 50 sales a year. We don't have as much data. So it's harder to do these adjustments without kind of asking you folks is the main thing, and that's one thing, before I forget, please, I'm gonna put my business card back up later, and if you can send me any information of your thoughts of what bedrooms are worth, bathrooms are worth, because it is a viable resource and way for us to get information to use for adjustments, is asking local realtors that are out there every day and what your opinions and stuff are, because it is hard to know what a storage shed's worth, or what a, you know, garden shed kind of thing, or what is a bedroom worth. Some people don't want 3 bedrooms, some people only want 2. It's hard to know, but any help I would be greatly appreciated if you just send me an email or something. Paul.
If you email me that information about Spark, I'll bring it up at the MLS meeting on the 1st.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll get it to Andrea. Is that okay? Andrea, I don't have Paul's email or anything. Yeah, she's not.
I'll send you my email.
Okay, that'd be good. All right, let's get this one. I'll put this up now just while we're whoa. There they are. I'll put it up now just so you can copy it if you write that down. So that's some new technology stuff that's out there that we're really kind of looking forward to, especially that Spark thing, because like I say, I know they do it with Milwaukee. I've gone in and tried to access them for the South Central Wisconsin MLS, and they say they're not currently working with that group. So hopefully we can get that down the road. That'd be awesome for us. The last thing, another thing was to talk about a little bit is housing stats. So like I mentioned, I was listening to Squawk Box the other morning, and they were talking about housing stats. Now this is just September of 2023, and these are national. It's not Wisconsin, it's not South Central, it's national. 25% or 27% in September, 27% of national sales were cash sales. That is like the highest level in like forever. And I do see that a lot. I'll see that there's cash sales and closings, and there's private sales are up tremendous too, which doesn't help you folks. But a lot of people are just like, hey, I can just stick a sign in the yard, and there's so few houses, they'll come calling. But so 27% were cash sales. Existing home sales from a year ago are down 15%, which we kind of understand because there's so little inventory. But there's a 3% price increase, and that's again because of the low inventory. And the last little tidbit they shared was this is the lowest mortgage demand since the Great Depression. This last month, I found that kind of interesting. One other thing I did want to cover today that I forgot, so I'm going to jump back to. I am an FHA USDA approved appraiser. And when you do FHA, it's a different animal. I'm not a licensed inspector, but they expect us to do some inspection work. The the most common things that happen when I go to a FHA appraisal is I have this probably a 40 item checklist. And the things that are forgotten the most are houses are required to have a smoke and a carbon monoxide detector on all levels of the house, including the basement. And that doesn't mean at the top of the stairs going down the basement. That means in the basement. So carbon and a smoke on all levels of the house. All GFI GFI outlets in the kitchens and all bathrooms. Stair rails, all stairs have to have railings. Now, a lot of old basements don't have those. If it's a real narrow one, they might let it go that you can put your hands on the sidewalls and not, feel safe, but handrails is another big one. Those are probably the most common. There's a lot more, but those are the most common. And it'd be great if, as you find out that one of your listings or something, or your buyer is using an FHA, to try to head that off and ahead of time. Andrea, do you have a question?
Yes,
Comment?
please. How about having a carbon and smoke in the garage? Is that just a nice to have, but not necessary?
Correct. That is not necessary. Now there are all lenders are different and they ask for different things. There are lenders that say, if there's an attached garage, even if it's not an FHA, that you have to have a carbon monoxide in your house. if it uses a stove, a gas stove, it's not electric, or if there's a garage attached is another thing. And there's one other thing, I can't think of it right now, but so it doesn't always have to be FHA either. Some lenders all lenders are different. They require different things. You'd think they'd all be the same, but they're not. All lenders have a whole different list of requirements. So, but for FHA, those are the most common. So again, like I say, and I'd be happy if you ever get an FHA situation, even if I'm not your appraiser, just call and ask, and I'll tell you everything I know that they have to have. Okay. Let's see. All right, and I guess the last thing before we open it up to questions is our job is not an exact science. We're the first to admit it. Everybody, if you gave 5 appraisers the same assignment, you might get 5 different numbers as a value, which sounds crazy, but it is true. We know that. Our life experiences are all different. Some people, just value things a little differently because we have so little data out here in rural, our area. And that's why the Spark thing, I think it'd be fantastic, because if we could all use it, it would really make us all more consistent. It's similar to maybe, I don't know, but if you gave 5 real estate agents 5 the same listing, they might all list it different. I don't know, but it would help with our consistency, because we know we're not exact, and but we try our best, and we have to. And the one thing I did want to leave to is we do have to consider what the average buyer would pay for an extra item. An example, an outbuilding. You got an outbuilding that probably costs, let's say, 50 grand to build, and it's only 3 years old. If you did a cost approach with depreciation, it's still probably worth 40 or more, but not everybody wants an outbuilding. Not everybody would like the extra maintenance or the extra tax because of their values higher, their property, whatever it may be. Personally, me, I'd love an outbuilding. I'm an outdoors guy. I've got 4-wheelers. I've got, I got all kinds of stuff. So I'd love to have one. So we try to just what the average person is kind of willing to pay for something. So a lot of times on outbuildings, they're like 10 grand, 15 grand. I've given as much as 50 grand for a really decked out one. But you do not get dollar for dollar per cost. You just don't. And that almost never happens in our business, where you get what the cost is for extra value. So I did want to throw that out there.
Is that the same, Steve, with, say, solar panels? I get a lot of questions from property owners. If we had solar panels, how much value does that add to our house?
Yep.
And some people like it, and some people could care less.
Yeah, that's a great question, Andrea. Like in my subdivision, I live just outside of Dodgeville. We have larger homes, larger lots, but there's a house right up by the entry that put in solar. In fact, there's 2 of them that just put solar in our subdivision on their house. For me to put it on my house, I'd have to put it on the front of my house that faces south to get the sunlight. I don't want one because I don't think it looks attractive on the house. But and in Wisconsin, I understand that you don't get like if you have extra energy, you sell it back, but you don't get the full dollar amount. I've heard from someone, I can't remember who I talked to about that, but they said in Iowa, they give you more. They give you the full amount of what they charge you. So if you sell it back, you get more money. But there's got to be some, like you say, everybody doesn't want it. Some people do, some people don't. And that is such a hard thing. Andrea asked me to try to address this before we had the meeting. And I'm like, man, I just don't have data to really find out what solar is or is not worth. And the same with swimming pools. Some people want them, some in-ground pools. Some people want them, some people don't. Some people fill them with concrete. They just don't want to deal with them. It happens all the time. And another is geothermal. Geothermal is expensive to put in, but geothermal, you have no heating. You have an electric bill to blow the fan, basically, but you don't have to buy natural gas, and you don't have to, you just LP. You don't have to do all that stuff. So there's got to be value there, but I know it costs. Let's say it costs 40 grand or 50 to 60 to put in geothermal. What's it worth to some people? I don't know. I've always given about 25,000 for it nowadays. I used to give 15, but now it's like 25. I think there's value there, but again, the lack of data is really so hard for us. And that's why I'm reaching out and asked all of you, if you have any ideas of what stuff is worth, from, you know, nuts to bolts, whatever you got, I would love to have you send it to me, and my email address is listed on the card there. That would be very helpful. We'll consider this kind of like my reaching out to you to get some information to help me out. So that would be awesome. That, I believe, is the last thing I had to go over. If there are any questions, comments, let's do it. Oh, I did want to say one. Andrea also asked me about the new power lines that are going up the highway. Again, no data. I mean, they're new. I wouldn't want one. You know, everybody's different, but I don't want one in my yard. So I mean, it's like, what do you do? I don't know about you.
Yeah, in our area, we have the power lines, the solar panels, and the windmills.
Right.
And
So
some
the-
people won't like it and some people don't care.
Right.
Do the windmills lower value? Have you had any experience on that yet?
I've personally never done a property that has a windmill on it. So I really,
I mean, just in the view plane. Have you done a property twice where first time you do it, there's no windmills, second time you do windmills? There are windmills?
I have not.
Okay.
Yeah, I personally have not. I've never done one with a windmill on it,
Okay.
or even close to it, actually, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So I've been lucky, if you will. Any other questions? Teddy?
I just have a side note, actually. I'm a lender with Community First Bank. I'm actually up in Sauk County, but Jody Breinig is an affiliate member and she wasn't able to attend, so
Sure.
she let me attend. But just a side note for realtors with solar panels, sometimes people actually have a lien placed on their house for those solar panels. So something to think about when you're doing sales and things, there might be a lien against the house for those panels.
Yeah, that's a very, very good comment, because I've heard that to be true. Because it's expensive to install them. So they give you, you know, some tax breaks and so forth, but you still have to pay for it, and it is expensive. So, yep, that's a good point, Teddy. Anybody else? Anything?
I'm wondering about the cost of appraisals these days. I had a problem last year with an appraiser who would only take the job if he got paid triple of what they normally make. And I'm just wondering if you're running into that with other appraisers where they're just upping their price, you know, dramatically.
Okay, Julie, thank you for the question. I'll try to answer that without incriminating myself.
Okay. Well, not that you're not worth it, but
Yeah,
and
so
it's part of closing costs.
we're all taught not to get in a group and discuss our fees. So I can only speak for myself. I don't know what everybody else is individual. It's all their business decisions they make and what they choose to do. So I can't speak for everybody. I can speak for myself. I have a set fee. I kind of try to have my fee based by the hour. So, you know, if I just had one today. So one of my AMCs, appraisal management companies, representing, I think it was, I don't remember which lender, doesn't matter. They're like, hey, I've got one in Ferryville, which is above Prairie du Chien up the Mississippi River. And from here, it's probably at least 3 hours round trip, minimum. And he's like, hey, would you take a look at it? And I'm like, sure, I'll take a look at it. So I looked at it and I sent back and I said, based on it, how far it is, I usually get, you know, this much. It's going to take me 2 extra hours to drive. I need $200 extra, about $100 an hour, or whatever it may be. And, you know, and then I do inflate it for those. But otherwise, I've kind of got a standard. If it's within so many miles of my office, it's X. If it's outside that, like Reedsburg, Baraboo, you get to be an hour up there, an hour back, that's 2 hours. I charge $50 to $75 more usually. But the only time I've had lenders offer me $1,200 one time to drive up above the Dells to do a house somewhere up north. And I didn't ask for it, but I said, sure, I'll drive up there for that. And I did. But I've not heard, I do know there is someone new. I don't know, I'm not going to even talk about who it is. There's a new appraiser in the area that's undercutting everybody. Just because they're new and they want to get the business, that's their choice. Good for them. I kind of did that when I first started too. So I didn't really answer your question, I don't think, but that's such
No,
an.
I'm sorry, that actually is the area that I had some sales on, and we couldn't get an appraiser for less than like triple what they would have normally charged, and this person lives in that area.
Wow. Yeah, that's something I don't do that, but it's for me, it's based on how far I have to go usually, or if it's a complex, like I've done properties over $1.5 million, and because as a certified residential appraiser, there really is no cap on how much the house could be worth. A regular licensed appraiser cannot do one over a certain dollar amount. It used to be 250,000. I don't know what the threshold is today, just because I don't have a need to keep up on that because I don't have a limit. But I've charged more for like really complex ones, but never just because I can poke it to them. But that's my choice. So.
Right. I didn't know if that was becoming a trend.
Yeah, not to my knowledge, but
It seemed like that area was really bad last year.
yeah, there are certain areas where there isn't a lot of appraisers, and I know that, like, I get requests to go to Prairie, Ferryville. That's just so far from me from Dodgeville. I mean, Prairie's at least an hour one way. I mean, I don't mind going there because I go an hour to Reedsburg and Baraboo, so it's kind of at the outer threshold. But at the same time, more time, I kind of do mine again based on an hour price per hour, and that's kind of how I do my personal choosing.
All right, well, thank you.
Yep, Teddy.
Be careful too from the lender side, because sometimes the lenders will bury additional fees into the appraisal. So there's some lenders in our area that charge an appraisal review fee, or their AMC charges more money. So it may not always necessarily be the appraiser when some of those appraisal fees come about.
Thank you. That's a good point, because I remember I went into one of mine and they said, geez, you're done already? It took me like 45 minutes to do it. And I said, well, most of the work's back in my office, and they said, well, geez, you're charging $650. This is back when I first started. I said, no, I don't charge near that much. So, I mean, I was below 400 then. I was like 350 or something, or maybe even less than that. I can't remember. But there are fees that are loaded in there. Some are more than others. I know you said Community First, right, Teddy?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I use the local one for me is Livingston. I've banked there for a long time. And they have the lowest fees if you're going to refi or something that I've ever seen in my life, because I buy and sell property all the time. I own a bunch of property in Kansas. I buy and sell farms down there, 2 or 3 a year. Trying to flip money and stuff like that. But it's like down there, they get $1,000 for an appraisal on a piece of land that they don't even get out of their desk to go do. So it's different everywhere. I mean, they don't even go on site and take a picture. They just sit in their office, do an appraisal and charge $1,000. But I guarantee you, the appraiser's not getting $1,000. There's just no way. So I know that lender in particular really socks it to you. Teddy, can you address this? Can I ask you a question?
Can try.
Yeah, so you may know my trainee, Erin Ewing.
Yep.
So Erin,
Darcy's actually on this call too. She's at the Richland Center office where Erin used to be. So
yeah,
I help underwrite files too. So I see a lot of your appraisals. They're pretty much the best in the area. So
well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Teddy.
That's from the underwriter side of things.
Yeah. So my question is, my understanding is that there is a new process where lenders have to get updates on their files every so often, maybe every 2 years or something like that. And it's a very short form that is not like a full appraisal. It's kind of a smaller form that you all use, kind of more of a summary form. Do you know what I'm talking about at all?
Yeah, actually, I heard about that. We don't do that here. So our appraisals are good for 3 years. If if somebody's gonna refi or sorry, a year, and then we have to get them redone, right, Darcy? Am I missing that?
Validated for.
Yeah, we have to get it like revalidated. But there are some lenders that I've heard nearby in the area that are doing that summary form. And I'm wondering, go ahead, sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, I've heard that too, and I'm not familiar with the form, but Aaron was talking with a different lender than you folks, and that's something they're starting to do a lot. And that's a new possible line of business for appraisers, maybe realtors. I don't know. I think realtors maybe are doing it too. That's kind of why I brought it up, because I think it crosses into both worlds of ours, where maybe it's a line of business that possibly realtors could also do for extra income.
And I think for us too, we're trying to find ways to have it be less expensive for the consumers too,
Right.
where if they don't have to pay for a full appraisal.
Yep, that makes 100%. Yep, I understand that. Julie, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I do actually do some of those inspections where you go to the house, you take pictures, you gotta have the street view and what's across the street and everything else. And then sometimes they'll ask me to do an inside one, which then I have to, make appointments with the owner to walk
Right.
through the house.
Great.
So
Yeah.
they don't pay very well.
They don't pay a lot, no. Is that a software you use, or do you just created your own kind of form?
No, they have a form. The bank has a form that now they have a new app that they want you to use where you go in and you can do the whole thing on your phone. So you take a picture of the house and it goes into the spot that you want it to on the form. And then they have you collect a little more data on the area, how many houses are for sale at this time, what are the price range, what's the median price range, how many, the population, all that fun stuff. So it's not hard to do. It's just more time in
Yep.
driving.
Yeah,
Because
right.
it always seems like they want you to go 2 hours away, and it's like for $75, 2 hours away is just not worth it.
Yeah, and I totally understand that, and that's why I don't like the hybrid appraisals either, is they're asking me to do an appraisal based on someone else's information I'm getting sent, and they usually want to pay $75, $50 to $100. And it takes almost the same amount of, not as much time, but I'm pretty efficient anymore. I mean, I've done it long enough that I can go pretty fast. I've got my iPad, I've got a laser measurer, it all uploads into my software. I used to use a piece of paper, draw it, then I'd have to come back and redraw it in the software, pictures in the camera, pull the SD card, load them up, all that kind of stuff. So now, with the technology, I'd probably say 45 minutes a report at least, if not an hour. But yeah, to do that 2 hours for $75, it's just not very appealing.
No, and they also want you to do it like that day. So the
Yeah.
day that they assign it to you, they want it done that day. And it's like, well, it's a 2 hour drive. I already have things scheduled. I can't just drop everything and run.
Right. Okay, great. And last thing I'm going to say is just, we're all in this together. We're so codependent, I believe, on each other. Without you folks selling houses, I wouldn't have a job. Without us appraising houses, it'd be hard to get them closed. So we're really, it's kind of like chiropractors and doctors. They're in the same field, but they just kind of, I don't know, don't trust each other, don't like each other because they have different philosophies. Don't feel that way toward appraisers, please. I am an open call away. Anything you need, I'd be happy to help. And I think all appraisers really would. So, feel free to use us for any questions you have if we can help. And thank you for your time today. If there's any other questions, I'll take them, but otherwise I'll turn it back to Andrea.
I just have one question.
Sure, Julie.
If I have like other listings that are similar to my listing, and I know the appraiser's going through, are you okay with us leaving those on the table for you, or any
Yeah,
information that?
that's a great question. Our job is to get information from anywhere possible. That's basically how it says it, that we're supposed to do it. It can be from any source. You can leave it there. It doesn't mean that we're going to use necessarily all of those. Maybe we'll use one, maybe we'll use none, maybe we'll use 3. But yes, absolutely, because we can find usually most of the information. But if you have some to share, absolutely. Again, we're happy to take it. Like I said, we might not use it because we're supposed to do a non-biased individual appraisal, which we're bound to. And so therefore, we may or we may not, but absolutely information can come from anywhere.
What about if they just did a remodel project and they have all the receipts for it?
A total cost isn't a bad thing for those new constructions and stuff, remodels. In fact, some lenders require that you put that cost list in the report. Some require that you do not. So I don't, you know, they're all a little different, but no, that doesn't hurt anything, knowing what the cost is, because we usually in remodels and new construction, we do a cost approach also. And we don't always know, Marshall and Swift is the book I use, that we pay a subscription to, but they don't know exactly what stuff costs in this area. So if you have cost lists and stuff, I'm all for it personally.
Yeah, I've called the Builders Association to find out if they knew what like a new bathroom would cost, and they're just like, well, it all depends. So, I said, that's not helpful. Don't you have a booklet that has what everything is available for price? And so,
Yeah. Paul?
No, I'm just thinking about what you just said. I just got a quote. I mean, I had someone quote a bathroom for a house that needs it redone. And he said, well, yeah, count on 10 grand just for a regular bathroom, nothing fancy. Shower stall, toilet, sink, drywall, redo the floor, 10 grand.
Wow. That seems a little pricey.
It does. It's crazy. The world's
Yeah.
gone nuts.
Yeah. So these books, you know, that we get, and they have based on your location in your state and so forth, which Madison is the location I have, they have an adjustment we're supposed to make based on where we're located in the United States. I still don't find them to be that accurate. I think that those numbers are union workers mostly versus, you know, like Zychek and Grimm, who's local here. I don't think they charge as much as the some of the numbers in there. That's just, so any kind of local numbers are better.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
Well, actually, bedroom size. How much of a difference on a value does it make if a bedroom is 10 by 10, a little bedroom, compared to a bedroom that's 14 by 14, other than pure square footage?
In an appraisal format, it doesn't matter, because we can't get down to the minutes, or we would never get done. You know,
Okay.
if we got down to all the nitty gritty stuff. So it's a bedroom count. We use the count, and that's really all. It doesn't matter if it's 10, you know, versus a large bedroom, you know. Yeah, good question.
I had somebody here locally in Iowa County who's a repeat client of mine tell me that they got a bid on adding a fireplace to a secondary home of theirs in Michigan. And they said, how much do you think our bid was for? And I thought about it. I usually think I'm pretty good. I said 20,000 and they said 35,000.
Wow.
That's unbelievable.
That is unbelievable. You used to be able to get them for 10 grand not too long ago, you know. It's crazy. Everything is very expensive. Labor is expensive. So yeah, any local numbers you can get are more accurate than any book that I have to pay $400 a year to have, that really doesn't know what our costs are around here. So, anything else, anybody? All right, Andrea, I'm going to turn it to you.
Thank you so much for your time, Steve. It was very helpful to all of us and we really appreciate it. And again, everybody, Steve. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And I hope everybody has a great day.